when Zoom calls start, a chance to actually get processed and get their audio connected, etc. So thank you all for joining. If you are here to learn how to turn your impotent rage into potent rage, that's exactly what we're here to do today. It's been way too long that we've just been getting kicked around by the State House, and so Liz and I are we are humble people, but we know that we've got some skills and some talents that we could share. We want everybody else to have all these same skills and talents because that's what it's going to take to start retaking our state house, retaking democracy, retaking the country, fixing and making a better world. Just the little things that we all care so much about. So we are recording this session. We're going to share the recording with everyone who has registered, and in fact, people who volunteer and donate after this point, just as a point of reference for everybody. We are going to try to stop right at noon. I can hold myself available. Liz, I can't speak for you, but if people have Q&A and want to chat off the recording afterwards, or maybe we'll even lead it on the recording, but we've got a couple minutes after, but we want to make it so if you have to stop at 12:00, you're not going to miss anything as part of the formal session because we want to respect your time. Just to quickly go over the agenda for today. So I did make a slide deck. I'm not good at making slides, but it's at least supposed to be some sort of a visual aid. We're going to spend just a couple minutes talking about or giving introductions, me and Liz in particular, like who are we, what gives us the right to host this training, which is what we mean by credentials. Like, why should you care what we have to say? Then we're going to just give the most 30,000 foot high level overview of political campaigns, like what they are, how they work, how we've learned, we think, the secret sauce for breaking the old mold and making political campaigns something that's not super alienating that you feel powerless in. We are going to get you all to help practice telling your own story, which if you want to be any kind of a leader, even if you're just leading a couple friends to help you in this fight, you're going to need to do this. If you're not interested in doing that and talking to your friends, you're not going to be very effective. And so thank you for being here. You can still make a couple phone calls or knock doors and we won't win. So no pressure, but you have to do this if we want to win. I'm going to give a quick call to action about what's coming up next. We're going to talk about next steps for the campaign, and then that should take us right to noon. And again, we can do a quick Q&A together after we end, or I always send all of my group emails from my personal email address, so you can always just hit reply and type whatever you want, and it goes right to my inbox, which I check. I'm an inbox zero kind of person, so I check kind of obsessively. So we'll be very quick to enter questions. My plan is to update the Freedom from Freeman website with a bunch of questions and answers if they become recurring questions, so we don't have to have 100 people ask the same things. All right, and so I'm going to jump right into it because, that's how time works. We got to keep moving. So I chose the most professional, serious-looking photos I could find of both me and Liz. This is who we are, right? So I am a person who's been in Indianapolis since I was 2 years old. I have always been an activist for labor unions, for community organizations, for senior citizens, for renewable energy. Basically, I've held my share of signs and put my share of pins on my shirt in the day. But it wasn't until 2016 that I really found that I could get involved in politics. So a little background about me. I was raised by a single mom who went through 3 divorces and multiple bankruptcies. So I went to Cathedral High School on a full ride scholarship. So I got the chance to see what it's like to be in poverty and to not know where your next meal is coming from. And then I also got the chance to meet people who, for one example, got a brand new Cadillac Escalade for their 16th birthday, totaled it, got their second 1-year-old Cadillac Escalade before they turned 17. So from an early age, I got exposed to just how unequal and unfair our society can be. And so I've always had, like that's a big connector for me personally and my faith. I don't think you need to be a person of faith to care about other human beings. But for me, it is very compatible with my Christian values. We have to take care of those who have the least, etc. And so starting in 2016, I started getting involved in the Bernie Sanders campaign. I started joining the Our Revolution movement to try to join. I'd always been a Democratic voter. I'd always knocked doors for candidates. I'd never thought of myself as a leader and somebody who could kind of move the narrative and make the party more people-powered. Been doing that work since 2016, but was kind of content to let leadership in the city and leadership in the state just do their thing and trust that they would make things better. as I ran for precinct committee person in 2022, I started looking up statistics about my neighborhood. I bought my house when I was 22. I've been here for 15 years. The only house I've ever owned, I still own. I'm still there with my wife today, who looks awesome in that photo. Um, but I noticed that actually life expectancy in my zip code has been going down, even while we've had a Democratic supermajority in the city. I've noticed that I had family members who were dealing with health concerns from environmental racism and unpaid debts because the East Side neighborhoods I live in still have lead pipes, still have a lot of problems. Like, for example, the RCA plant in Sherman Commons, it's a brownfield site and is poisoning us all. So I saw that actually life was getting worse, even though I had helped fight and put a Democratic supermajority in our city leadership. And so I realized I'm going to have to do even more than that. And I've got to put my money where my mouth is. If I really think that we can do better and that a better world is possible, I need to put my money where my mouth is and run for office myself. And I thought, whether I win or lose, I can help change the narrative and show people that we actually understand policies quite well that can protect our children, protect our communities, and make for a better life for working people. So I thought, win or lose, this is a worthy campaign. I'm ready to do it and just decided, yeah, I'd throw my hat in the ring. I had just one mild panic attack the day before I announced my candidacy because I've never really been the one in the front of you notice I'm here at the bottom steps in the rally photo, right? I'm not like the main face or never had been before. It doesn't come very naturally to me, but I decided to go outside my comfort zone, talk to my neighbors, talk to people who care in the city, and just see what I could do in terms of changing the narrative. Um, and maybe I'll stop my story there because I think that's a good intro. Liz, maybe you can say like how you got involved in progressive politics and then how you got involved in my campaign and kind of take over from there.
Yeah, so I grew up pretty sheltered, grew up on the east side of Carmel. So didn't really have a lot of diverse world experience or perspective, to be honest, growing up. Spent a few months of my childhood actually living over in China. That was really cool. That's probably the most, unique experience I had, and otherwise I was in my little bubble. Went off to college, and that was the year that Trump was running against Hillary Clinton, my freshman year. And watching this all unfold, and decided that I wanted to study political science because I thought it was really fascinating how. People win campaigns, even people like Trump who are fueling them with some hatred. And I just wanted to understand how it worked and how we got to that point. I specifically studied voting habits, why people vote the way they do, what's most likely to impact the way that people vote. My senior advisor professor wrote a fantastic article about Trump's first election. Look up Clarissa Peterson. And I wrote my senior thesis expanding on her research there. And so I never really actually worked on a campaign. I just kind of looked at them from the outside and kind of analyzed results, understood, what is driving people to continue voting a certain way or change their vote. And in 2020, all the George Floyd protests were happening, and I started to get really involved there. That's when I got a bit more involved with Central Indiana DSA. And after that summer, was involved in their housing committee where we'd go around and let people know that they're facing eviction, what their legal rights are, and try to provide some support for those in need, potentially facing homelessness in Indianapolis. And through that time with Central Indiana DSA, I got to know Jesse really well and found out that he was running. And I was really, really excited. Part of why I had never worked on a campaign before is because I think I had a bit of a cynical take, if I'm going to be honest, that like all people who want to go into politics are doing it for the wrong reasons and seeking power. And, I can do more impact, more work on the outside. I don't want to be in it. But hearing that Jesse was running was really inspiring because everything I had known about him for the, year or two prior was that he cares about people, and he's going to make a really positive impact on Indianapolis. Act Blue hosted, or sorry, Act Indiana hosted a training for all the more progressive candidates across the state. So myself and a handful of other DSA members showed up. And after that training, I was like, I want to run your campaign. I knew I was moving out of Indianapolis. I didn't want to just be one of those people who left Indianapolis and, went off to a more blue state and just wash my hands of it. I do live in Tennessee now, but I was moving out to Boston. So, um, I wanted to, it was kind of my last, I say last because I'm still here, little love letter to Indianapolis, and doing some good before heading out. Yeah, really was just so excited to get involved. And I was a little delusional, if I'm going to be honest, at first, like right after this first training, I was like, we could win for sure. Everyone else, like, we probably won't, but we could do some good even if we don't win. And I was just like, no, I feel like we can do it. And yeah, it was a little delusional, but it worked out. So I think I was just right. And I manifested it or whatever. But at the end of the day, what it really taught me is if you put your mind to it, if you get out there, if you just fully commit to, putting in the work to make it happen, you can get it done. So excited to talk more about how we did that, all of that. But that's a little bit about me. Yeah, if you want to chat more anytime, reach out.
And just to put into context what Liz said, she came up to me and was like, "Hey, I want to run your campaign." And I was like, "Oh, Liz, I actually can't. I don't have enough money. I'm sorry, I can't afford it." And so she was like, "No, no, no, for free as a total volunteer." I was like, "Well, that's like tens of thousands of dollars worth of work from any other campaign. Are you sure?" And she never hesitated once, never let me give her any money for this. So, if you enjoy me as a representative, thank Liz for that. If you don't enjoy me, pretend Liz wasn't instrumental, but she was.
Blame me. Yeah. Oh, thanks, Jesse.
Cool.
Let's go to the next slide. Yeah. Beautiful. So, yeah, the how we win. At the end of the day, the two most important things are people, so volunteers, and money. And having enough money to do the things that you need to do, like yard signs, flyers, door hangers, paying volunteers who are at polls all day on election day, and a handful of other expenses that come along with not just running but winning a campaign. Um, so obviously, as you can see there, to win, more people have to vote for you. But how do you get more people to go out and actually vote? And vote, in your favor. I think the number one impact is going to be able to go out and just knock doors and actually talk to your neighbors. Canvassing is, and actually having someone face to face with another person is going to be really impactful. Doing that and layering it with phone calls and texts and other modes of communication with voters is really important. I work in sales, and I sometimes like to view everything as a sale. You're selling something. In politics, you were selling a candidate, and why they should vote for them, why they're right for that opportunity. And we always talk about how it takes about 7 touches to get like a yes. Takes 7 times of reaching out, of talking to them on the phone before you get the meeting, with them once you got the meeting and you're trying to close the deal. So in this case, 7 touches. I mean, not exactly, but the more you can be out there in front of people, the more they know your name and what you're about, the better. So door knocking, phone banking, and text banking are going to be really, really influential. At the end of the day, the whole goal is to help people see where you're coming from, why your candidate's the best. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to expose the flaws of the other candidate. But at the end of the day, in Jesse's campaign, we weren't bashing on his opponent. We weren't out there being like, he is evil and going to ruin the city. We were like, hey, here are some ways in which he has failed the city. You can see, because these are propositions he supported, real factual things. And here's Jesse's plan to make it better. I think there can be definitely some power in, again, exposing those flaws. We're not trying to just go out there and run, a trash campaign where we're crapping on someone else. We want them to see the value in the person that we're promoting. Obviously, this is a little vague right now because we don't actually have a candidate. But regardless of who the candidate is, I want to make it clear that we're not out here trying to hardcore bash anyone else. I think at the end of the day, that makes us look a little cheap, a little bad. We're again trying to show the positive change that can be made. And then raising money. Unfortunately, we need money to do everything. So, getting donations, soliciting donations. One of the most powerful things in Jesse's campaign was actually having him reach out and talk to people that he personally knows, asking to donate. But something we did have our volunteers do is the exact same thing. Hey, would you be willing to come out and canvass and or donate to this campaign I'm working on? Hey, do you have 5 minutes to chat? I'm working on a cool project. I want to tell you about it and see if you might be interested, and getting some more people involved. So really the point of this call today is to start gathering that support and getting people together and connected. Because when Jesse's campaign started, it was really like me, Maura, Camus, Mary Kate, Jesse. Was there anyone else at the training? Or was
There
it
were a
just,
few people because it was a 2 day training, and there was another big handful of people who could only join for part of each
yeah.
day or for 1 day at a time. Like I think Keith's on this call, and I know Keith, you were there for a little bit. So there were a handful of people, but I think you named the core people who slogged through like 16 hours of training in a weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the five of us sitting there with, a bit of a dream and a lot of energy to go out and make it happen. And now looking here, we got 17 people on a call, ready to go out and make a difference in one way or another. You just being here, or if you're watching the recording, you just watching this is an incredible first step towards helping and understanding what a campaign means. So really appreciate everyone being on here. And really inspired to see that we already have like almost triple what we had starting out on Jesse's campaign.
We've
Um,
also raised a ton more money. And Liz, do you mind if I just spend like 2 minutes talking about? So, if you think about it, so first off, I will say that establishment Democrats, like two or three of them, have come up to me and said to beat Aaron Freeman in his Senate seat, you would need a $500,000, which is a very sobering number. I don't know where that number came from, and everybody's using it. And so that makes me a little suspicious because I've done predictions before, and back of napkin math is one thing, but when you're calculating out exactly 500,000, that seems like a stretch to me. But then I also wanted to point out a couple things about that. Number one, tens of thousands of dollars of volunteer work were done on my city council campaign, right? If we can step that up, we could easily do hundreds of thousands of volunteer work. Like when you have to pay a canvasser, you're paying like $15, $20 an hour. I've personally committed to knock 1,000 doors on this campaign. So that's, aside from the money I already threw in, already a huge in-kind contribution, right? The other thing I wanted to talk about is let's pretend that's true. Let's pretend we need $500,000 and that's the magic number that it will take to win this campaign. What if we just got one person to write a check for $500,000? Would that be better? Yes or no?
Mm.
No. I see people's instincts are correct. Why is that though? I'll go ahead and answer. So it's because we want people to have skin in the game, right? I'll tease Cliff, who I saw just come in, because I teased him about this on his mayoral campaign. But you want working class people, you want regular people to have skin in the game. If I've committed to come out and knock doors, but I haven't like actually committed anything that would lose me anything if I lose, it might shift down and become a lower priority. If I've literally contributed money, maybe for the first time ever to a political campaign, I'm going to be a lot more likely to continue to stay involved throughout that campaign. So, one real big thing I'm going to be pushing in the next steps is ask people for small donations. I would really prefer not to have some rich person write a $10,000 check and never talk to us again. I'd rather somebody give us $5 every month and then also show up at these calls and really feel like this is their campaign that they have ownership of, because that's how we get democracy back in politics. So anyway, just want to make that quick point. Sorry, Liz, I know that was your slide. My
no,
bad.
no, I love it. That's definitely helpful. Um, We're going to skip on to the next slide. Beautiful. This is a little bit of an activity that we're going to guide you through. So as Jesse mentioned before the call officially kicked off, you have a pen and piece of paper, pull that out. You can do it on your laptop, but don't get distracted by all the fun wonders of the internet. Um, Before we really dive in, before you start writing anything down, I want to share briefly the importance of this exercise and how it impacted our campaign. Then I'll walk you guys through it. So, you got a taste of this with Jesse and I sharing a bit more about how we got involved, why we got involved, and what we do. And that why is going to be a big driving factor, not just when you're actually out talking to people, but as Jesse mentioned before, like having skin in the game. I think about I'm a big like fitness workout person. I was a swimmer growing up. There were plenty of times where the last thing I wanted to do was, wake up at 5 a.m. and go dive into a freezing cold pool. It actually sounded miserable. But why I showed up, my big whys, big part for me was my team, big like team player, teamwork, all that as well. But also, my personal goals of hitting certain times, making certain cuts, being able to do certain things. So even though I didn't want to do it, the why was strong enough to get me out of bed, get me into that pool. And once you're doing it, and after you're doing it, it doesn't matter if you wanted to or not. You're doing it and then it's done. And it's good overall. Like I knew at the end of the day, it was going to be a net positive for me. I think the same applies to working on campaigns. If you have a strong enough why, if you are bought into not just the candidate, but the vision of what's possible, then it doesn't matter if it's raining and you're supposed to go canvas and you don't really want to. It doesn't matter if, you've had a really, really long day of work and you're exhausted and the last thing you want to do is, phone bank. Now, obviously, I'm not saying run yourself ragged volunteering on a campaign, but you have a bit more power over your emotions when you have a strong why. And you're not just, letting your emotions run the show. You're letting, your true passions, your true reasons dictate your actions. And let's be honest, even on days where it was like really, really gross out and we were canvassing, those were kind of like the most rewarding days because after it's done, you're just like, heck yeah, like we just knocked, 100 doors in like an hour and a half and it is pouring rain, or it's freezing cold, but like we did it, it's done. Let's go get a beer at Mayfair. No, but connecting to your why is really important and honing in on the story as to why and making it, you know, I don't want to say brief, but like a bit more concise, something you can share with people is really important. No one on this call, unless you've like gone through this activity before, is going to walk away with like a perfect story of self right now. This is just to get you thinking about what it is. It should evolve over time. But I'm going to go ahead and set a little timer. And we're going to answer some of these questions here. So we're going to start with just in general and just keep writing. Even if you're like, I'm here today because Jesse asked me to be. Okay, why do you respect Jesse enough to show up when he asks you to? Like literally just keep writing. Keep asking yourself why multiple times as well to get to that deeper reason. So why are you here today? We have 2 minutes. And I'll pair it with the other story. What gives you the strength and the courage to show up? Yes, we will ask you some people to share, to speak up and share here and there. So, why are you here today? What is driving you?
All right, guys, I'll go first, I guess.
Oh, we're still writing. Sorry, we're gonna
Oh, we're
keep
still
writing.
writing. Okay, cool.
Another 30 seconds. But then we will share. So you will go first. Do 20 seconds, finish up your thoughts. All right, pencils down. Leslie, if you want to share, why are you here?
So I'm here because I really want safer public spaces. I've come around in the last couple of years to the idea that access to so many important things is driven by whether or not you have a car. And increasingly, our jobs don't support people having cars in good working order with gas in them. So I just see a more equal society as being one where money doesn't determine what you have access to.
Love that. We'll do one more on this one if someone else wants to share.
I guess I'll go ahead and share too. I want better transit and I want safer streets. And Freeman has shown that he's not going to stop. I mean, adding the ban on more no turns on red to the anti-blue line bill. I mean, he's just not going to stop. So he needs to go. And that's just all there is to it.
Oh, I love that. I think that's really
Quickly,
straightforward. Like Freeman, is not doing his job.
so can I quickly push back though? Because Sean, I love that answer and I totally agree, of course. Leslie, I love that answer and I totally agree. But why are you here today?
Why am I here? Because I bike to work every day and I'm sick of the danger of it. And I actually have a pretty good route. You know, I have a pretty safe route. St. Clair to Alabama Street. Um, but I get honked at least once a week, and that's infuriating. So
Totally. And the only reason I was pushing back and asking you to say that out loud, because I knew that to be true, but your story becomes much more powerful when you are the protagonist, right? Like data, statistics, policy is all super important, but anybody could say that. Like I always ask myself, because I used to work in technology, how am I different than just like a chat GPT, right? Because a chat GPT could look up and cite the statistics, but I've got my personal experiences to talk through. And so your story will always be stronger when you put yourself out there. So sorry for picking on you, but great job. And you answered it perfectly afterwards. So checks in the mail. Glad we set that up beforehand. Just kidding.
sure.
No, I think that's a great point. Centering yourself, why do you care? So like, I'll share mine real quick as an example. I had a friend very recently get hit by a car, in downtown Indianapolis and like really, I mean, just broke my heart as she's really struggling, multiple surgeries. I'm not going to share too many details, of her personal life, but like for me, hearing that there was this campaign now against Freeman, it's like good. The last thing I want at this point is a politician being funded by Ray Skillman, when my friend literally almost died in the street. And I'm not trying to use her tragedy in any way. It genuinely is why I'm here. Um, and when, you're able to share that with people like on Jesse's campaign, why are you here? Knocking doors, coming out here. Well, because the life expectancy in this neighborhood, is going down, or because whatever your passion is, whatever is driving you. And it doesn't have to be a massive, complex thing. It can be really simple of, I bike to work. This is about me. That also helps people realize that it's about all of us. It's about them too. And it impacts everyone.
And just
So
like, I
I'm
think you
gonna
said that so
share,
perfectly.
I'm gonna move to a bit to the story of us and some of the values we share. So like, for example, more equitable society, Leslie, like you said. And what is the world that we're actually fighting for? What is the vision that we are sharing with people? And then the last kind of facet of this one, why does the person you're talking to need to get involved? Why does it impact them as well? So, an overarching idea of the values, what is the end goal, and then why should that person care? Let's just pretend you're canvassing for this one. You're just talking to a resident, an average indie resident. Why do you need to get involved? Give you guys like a minute or two on this. Coming up on a minute. Let's wrap our thoughts up here just so we can stay on time. Again, this is just to help you get started thinking, how to share your story. What is the most important, to you? Why are you involved? Anyone else want to share? Want to see, obviously, if Leslie and Sean want to share again, they're welcome to, but if other people want to speak up first, please do so.
I would say the reason why I'm here with Jesse is because I vote for those who vote for me. It's kind of crazy to put someone in office that oppose everything that we, the people, want. And that's the point of you being where you at. So that's why I'm here for Jesse and willing to fight for Jesse, because Jesse fight for his people. So he vote for us just as well as we vote for him.
Absolutely. I love that.
So, Tequila, thank you for that. That's too sweet. But then also, I'd challenge you to go a little bit deeper. And so, like, what would that world look like that we deserve that you haven't seen politicians give you before? Like, what's the dream we can paint for our neighbors? Like, if somebody's like, I don't know, I voted my whole life and nothing's changed, why would I get involved? Like, what's the dream we're going to paint for them?
Number one thing I do like the fighting for the blue line. You hear us saying that, hey, look, it's dangerous for us. We don't feel safe. We trying to get to work. And it's like, okay, I hear you guys out. What can I do to help y'all get there? And you're doing it, setting up this Zoom, showing us how to campaign, what it takes for us to get there. So that's what I say. You hear what we're saying and you go after that. So that's what I mean by voting for those who vote for us.
Yeah. No, I love that. Exactly. Anyone else care to share before we move on?
Yeah, if I could just jump in, talking especially to the people in the donut counties and specifically people who live in counties represented by Aaron Freeman, for talking about representatives that represent what we want. He's spending a lot of time focusing on, Indianapolis and not necessarily Greenwood, right? So is the politician, even if ideologically we're opposed to the person we're talking to, is their politician actually representing their district? Because he's got a little sliver of Indianapolis and then it's mostly Greenwood.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point. And I think, challenging you, pushing you one step further there, just like we kind of have been, of what does that look like? And you don't need to answer that necessarily right now, but when everyone is being fairly represented by their elected officials, what does that provide? What world does that offer? What opportunities does that open up for people? Like being able to get somewhere safely by walking should kind of be the bare minimum.
And we can easily so I'm a proud member of DSA, proud Democratic Socialist, but I didn't like talk to people at the doors about some crazy Marxist paradise in 100 years, right? Instead, for this issue, we could say, look, we've all seen that it's possible to have a world where kids can just safely ride their bikes in their neighborhoods. Many of us grew up feeling that like that was true, and that isn't true right now. So how about we at the very least make that something we get to this year, right? We could snap our fingers and put in the tactical urbanism that I know Leslie's seen. We could do a lot to help protect our children and just give our children a safer, better childhood. And we could do that right now. That's a policy choice. So that's what I mean about like paint the picture like, oh, actually, regardless of what party I normally vote for, I do want my kids to be able to play outside without getting hit and killed by cars. So that's a shared value. You don't have to care about the political labels that the canvasser in front of you has. It's just, oh, the values, the world that we want to build together is one where it's safe to be a kid, right?
I will say it is important when canvassing, we pull specific lists. So you're not going to, talk to anyone who is an extreme, MAGA Republican out here who's like going to be yelling at you, unless maybe you knock on the wrong door. So it's mostly going to be people who share similar values already, just to ease anyone's fears there. I know I was a little nervous about that before I went out to canvass. So they're already mostly going to be on your side. But really the main thing I learned from canvassing is I think a lot of people don't realize how much policy and our elected officials are actually impacting their day to day. This one woman was like, my main complaint is that my street is always dark. It's so dark. It's so like makes it, so unsafe at night for the kids to be out. I was like, oh yeah, that's intentional. I mean, I didn't say that exactly, but essentially let her know that's something that, the government could solve and they're choosing not to. And yeah, just pointing that out for people of, okay, yeah, this seems like this crazy impossible issue. It can be fixed. Here is how. Here is the vision. Here's what our candidate's offering. And then, yeah, just sharing stories, I think is really important. Kind of the why now. So for me, that's really pressing. Like I had a friend literally just get hit by a car. I have plenty of friends who have had issues with cycling, walking, trying to do that for a while now. I think just in general, a big call to action for this group, Freeman just sitting there and texting while a mom is crying and talking about her literal child who will never get to text or laugh or cry ever again. I think that invokes like a lot of emotion in a good way, in which it's like, yeah, like that's messed up. I think a lot of people will hear that. That is wrong for someone who we elected and we put into this position to feel like they have the right to do. So that why now, I mean, it might be different, for you on this call, whatever your personal reason is. But it's not like we're just going after Freeman because we want a blue seat in the Senate. We're going after Freeman because he's got to go and helping people see that. The how now. So obviously the strategy, when you're canvassing and door knocking or phone banking, for the most part, if it's actual constituents, the main number one how is get out to vote, make a plan to vote. I am not surprised that Jesse won in kind of a landslide victory because so many people came out to vote. It was like the highest, participated in an election that was not in a presidential election year, like ever, for his district. So it just, getting people out there first and foremost is actually going to be the biggest impact. As someone who studied voting habits and how people win elections, Republicans don't win elections because they have massive, massive support. They win elections through tactics like voter suppression, leading people to believe that they shouldn't care enough to go out to vote, but their people know well enough to do it. It's not always because they actually have the majority, it's because they've manufactured it. And we need to fight against that by going out there and actually voting. and making sure that everyone has a plan to vote, knows how to vote, knows where to vote, knows when they need to be registered to vote by. Another very common voter suppression tactic is simply just having a voter registration deadline. It's a little crazy, but I'm not going to go on that rant. But then also, if they're really, about it, they're really engaged, can you put up a yard sign? Can you, would you want to come out and canvass with us sometime? Would you be willing to come work the polls with me on election day? Trying to pull them in other ways as well. I will never forget walking up to this woman's house. I was like scared to knock her door because she had an Adamson sign out in her yard. And I'm very outgoing, but even I still get intimidated by that kind of thing. But I was like, you know what? I've talked to Adamson people before, and at least they're like they're not, mean. They're just like, oh, I'm voting for him. Sorry. I'm like, okay, muster up the strength, knock on the door, and literally one of the best conversations I had on the whole campaign. She was like, yeah, I put up the sign just because like I kind of know him personally, but I'm really excited about Jesse. I'm actually going to take this sign down after talking to you. I was like, do you want to put a Jesse sign up? And she was like, no, I don't want to do that. But it created more action than just her going out to vote for Jesse, and you can do that as well. And that's how you work in sales. Yep. Yeah, literally, just got to sell them on it. And then the call to action. So like there were people I talked to on the campaign, have something. Are you registered to vote? Do you want to check your voter registration? Where are you going to vote? And make sure that they know exactly that location. And then following up with them as well. There were people I personally followed up with, hey, have you gone out to vote yet? Have you mailed in your ballot? Whatever it might be. But yeah, at the end of the day, if you can center around why you are here personally and how that connects to the better and bigger vision for Indianapolis, then you're going to be really impactful. Whether you're super extroverted like myself and love to go out and talk to people, or if you're really introverted and you're pushing some boundaries, people are going to recognize that you care, that you are pushing yourself to go out and do this. Hey, I'm really introverted. This is not how I would spend my Saturday, but I'm here talking to you because I care, and here's why. And that's how we went. So, yeah, any questions over your story? Real quick, we'll do like a quick 2-minute thing. If people have questions over this, need any advice, insight.
One thing I wanted to say is you could see, I know you can't click my screen right now where it says more info linked here, but we will be sending this slide deck as well as links to an entire Google Drive. Our friend Garrett Blad, who helped conduct the 2-day training we talked about, has written a whole guide on how he ran for state representative and what he learned from it, what we would do better. Anybody can read that. So if you're interested in getting more leadership or just kind of peeking behind the scenes to see how organization of a campaign works, you're going to get all that info too. And then there's like pages and pages of information about this storytelling stuff. So if you're like kind of getting it, but you're not a master yet, well, yeah, that makes sense. It's been like 20 minutes and you have a few bullet points. That's all you're supposed to do today. And you could dig in deeper later if you need to.
Oh, love it. We do not have a candidate yet, but that is a great question. Stay tuned. But obviously I know that's really important, the candidate themselves and, who they are, what they represent. I have a lot of confidence going in blind, because of, my trust in Jesse, if I'm going to be honest. Obviously we'll share more as we hone in on that. But at the end of the day, anyone blue is going to be better than Freeman, if I'm going to be honest. I'm excited to find out who. Cool. Well, we will go move to Jesse, if you want to share the call to action. We're almost done here as well. We only got 15 minutes left. So
Yep.
stay
All right,
alert,
so
stay
now
alive.
Now you're lucky because Liz and I actually worked together to create a state-of-the-art training lab. It's a safe environment where you can practice these skills and you don't have to worry about it. That training lab exists outside the room you're in. Just open that door and then you're in the lab. It's called the world, right? And so whenever you're practicing new skills, practice with people who love you, right? Practice with your friends, with your family members. You don't want to try your first time telling a story to somebody who's going to be like, I don't give a shit. Like that's heartbreaking the first time you try to tell your story, right? So talk with the people who already know you and like you. They're going to listen to you a little bit more. You're going to have an easier time persuading them. And then also it gives you just like it's like any workout. You got to do a few reps before you get comfortable and really get your form down, right? So your call to action is to work within your own network. Think of people who like you and respect you, not necessarily people who share your politics, not necessarily people who you think are going to be the best volunteers in the world, just people who care about you and will hear you out. Because that's the real test, right? Like motivating somebody who was like meant to be here and showed up late today. Okay, cool. I guess that's great. I'm glad that you moved them that extra tenth of an inch, right? But if you move somebody who hasn't even been paying attention to the Blue Line bill and you explain the situation and get them to volunteer, you've moved someone a lot further. You've practiced your skills and you're going to have a bigger confidence boost as a result. So my suggestion and requirement, because I'm the boss or something, I don't know, is write down a list of 5 people who you think you could have a conversation with about this volunteer campaign without burning the relationship, right? So if it's somebody who has been like, you better never talk to me about politics again, maybe skip that person, right? Doesn't have to be the crazy uncle you see at Thanksgiving and fight with every time, even if he loves you, right? But find some friends, if they're apolitical, even better. Talk to 5 of them. The results you want. 2 of those 5 give money, even if it's $5. 2 of those 5 agree to knock doors with you, even if it's for 1 hour, one day this year. 2 people who like this enough that they're going to talk and have the same conversation with 2 more people. So it could be 2 people are just super fans and they do all of this. It could be somebody's like, I'll give you $5, just never talk to me again. Cool, that works too. It could be somebody who's like, hey, I'm super broke. Even 5 is something outside my comfort range, but I can talk to my friends for you. Any of the above is good. Any of the above is valid. And it's obviously okay if you do this 5 times and strike out, right? 5 misses. I'm not a baseball aficionado, so pretty sure 5 strikes are out. Just kidding. But seriously though, it's okay to fail. What's not okay is to not try, right? This is a low stakes thing intentionally. Remember, this is just the training lab we call the real world. I didn't even update this. I said, who are the 2 people? I changed my mind. It's 5 people. So you get a bigger homework assignment. Seriously, just take 60 seconds and just write 5 names, write it down. It's a weird little psychology trick. I even like my handwriting is trash. But writing by hand actually like has a better neural pathway in terms of your memory and commitment levels. So you'll feel like you're making a commitment to yourself and you'll actually do this where otherwise you just put it off and make excuses, right? So I'm going to do it too. Let's take 60 seconds, just write down 5 names. I'm not going to check your work this time or ask you to list 5 names outside, but this is seriously important, even if it seems childish. Write them down. Anybody need more time?
I'm good.
All right. So you've all got your 5 names. Do it this weekend. Like maybe you're super busy, maybe you work all weekend and so you can't do it today or tomorrow. I think most of us can have like this is like 5 minutes per person, right? It doesn't need to be an hour long heart to heart catching up on everything that's been going on in your lives. Have those because that's a cool part of being a human being, right? But for this particular campaign, it just needs to be a 5 minute conversation. Um, we'll later practice if you keep training with us on how to overcome objections and how to keep talking to people after they've said no. But for now, if somebody gives you a clear no, like, hey, thanks for asking. I understand where you're coming from. No, I'm not interested. You don't have to fight them. Cool. You've done your homework. You're good. But you do have to make them say no, right? You can't be like, oh, they'll probably say no. I better not even talk to them. No, no, no. Trust them to say no. They will say no if they don't want to do it.
I mean, the answer is always no if you never ask. So
Yeah,
the worst thing that's going to happen is you're right where you currently are. So
right. As Michael Scott said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right?
yeah. Cool. Well, thank you for that, Jesse. If we want to go to the next slide, gonna talk about some of our democratic socialist events. DSA is what brought us all together, really. What I think about Jesse's campaign. DSA endorsed Jesse and basically all of his volunteers up front were DSA members until we were able to recruit some more. We built the campaign from the ground up. We have an incredible elections committee that's working really hard throughout the year, not just on campaigns, but fighting things like these bills, showing up to protests and events at the State House. Our elections committee co-chair, Christy, is on here. She's fantastic. And Christy, maybe if you want to put like your number in the chat, if someone's, on this call, you clearly are passionate about politics and about elections and impacting them. Obviously, this campaign is a great place to start, but if you want to stay plugged in to all of the, campaigns that we're looking at, all of the bills that we're fighting against, reach out to Christy and our elections committee and, get plugged in. They have weekly meetings as well as a Slack channel to stay up to date. And some upcoming events through DSA. We have Power Mapping and Strategic Campaign Workshop, which will be February 17th. It's from 1 to 3 p.m. And it is free. So show up. It's free skills. This is something I love about our elections committee, our labor committee, really all of our committees in DSA is they're trying to plan trainings and provide leadership skills and real world skills to get out there. So come out to that event. I think it'll be a huge help, not just for this campaign, but life skills. And then we have our annual meeting because it's not really a meeting. It's basically a big party. It's so much fun. It's the biggest and best event we put on as a chapter all year. It's our biggest fundraising event. We provide food, games, we'll have a silent auction. And I'm especially excited because of all the fantastic work that our labor committee has done supporting unions. We're actually going to have a union leader joining us, president of, I want to make sure I get this right.
Teamsters Local 135.
135. There we go. Yeah. Thank you. President of Teamsters Local 135 coming to speak. Should be a really, really awesome event. It's also a great way to get plugged in a low stakes way. If you're like, hey, I don't know about that whole socialist thing, that's okay. I didn't for a while either. But then when you realize it's a big group of people who are fighting for all the same things you're fighting, and it's a tool that you can use to make and affect the change that you want to see. It's pretty awesome. So come out to the annual event. It'll be a really, really great time, 6 to 9 p.m. We'll have childcare there for the first portion where we'll have speakers and whatnot. Should be good. And then obviously we have a deeper dive training session on March 9th. So mark your calendar. It sounds like we do not have a time for that yet, correct? Cool. Mark your calendar. If you can reserve the day, do it. I assume we'd try to do it a little bit earlier in the day, nothing like late at night. So, mark the calendars. Yeah. And then also join DSA, reach out, even if you want to join in a very low stakes way. We have space for everyone. So,
yeah, if you've ever been interested, you should definitely join DSA. You can give $5 online. You don't have to take an oath of loyalty. You don't have to do required political readings. There's stuff you can read. Like, we'll definitely hook you up if you want. But if you're just like, you know what? Seems like you're interesting, good people. Let me make sure I'm on your email list. That's cool too. But also, all the events you see on this page are open for you, even if you never want to become a DSA member and know that for a fact. So these are awesome things DSA is doing. that we wanted to promote since they did us the honor of holding this Zoom call on their Zoom line that they pay for. I'm a member, but any of these are available, and we want you to know the skills. We're pretty confident that you'll like us, but even if you don't, we're happy to teach you all of our secrets and give away the secret sauce recipe. And I see Christy's got a hand up.
Robert's also on staff.
Go ahead, Robert.
Go ahead, Christy. I think you're going to say what I want to say.
Jesse, the priorities convention for the chapters on March 9th. Is that what you're going to say, Robert?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if you're going to make that or not, but that's something to consider about possibly rescheduling.
Good call. Thank you. Yeah, I'll work it out.
Yeah. Also, I put the join link and the annual event RSVP as well as my number and the elections committee email. Reach out to me anytime if you have any questions on campaigns or trainings, whatever. We're planning on doing trainings all through the rest of the year. We had a team lead training in January where we were kind of doing something similar to this, except a little bit more in detail from our other elections committee co-chair.
Yeah. Awesome. Let's rock on to next steps so that we can end on time.
Yeah, totally. So again, we are going to send, because I know some people had to join partway through, some people had to drop partway through. There's a lot of people who are going to be out of town or on the road that said they wanted to be here. So everybody who registered and anybody who asks is going to get this recording, the slide deck we used, and then that whole access to Google Drive. There's awesome materials there as well. So we aren't the committee to actually run a candidate, right? And so there might be some duplication of efforts at some point. But what we would need, if we were the people on this call, the committee, is we would need leaders in each of these bullet points, right? So if you see something there that you're like, I'd kind of be interested in doing that maybe just on a volunteer basis, maybe not like the one in charge of the entire state Senate campaign, but I could lead 2 or 3 people on fundraising. Or, I spend all day on Twitter anyway. Maybe I could, post some things that help this candidate. Oh, was that just about me? Just me? Okay, sorry. Maybe I actually have policy chops and I know statistics that could really help a candidate come up with really solid policy points that they could make. Any of the above, just shoot us an email and we would love to put you in touch with people. We already have some committee leads who are doing graphic design work, and we have people who are organizing fundraisers and donating alcohol for them. So you won't be the first person to sign up for a leadership role, but if you're interested, please reach out. And then finally, I think we're like at time right now. So this is just a super high, sorry.
2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay.
2 minutes.
So this is ultra high level, and this is one where Liz and I are not the boss, right? Like this team collectively, we decide how the campaign runs. But here's what I'd propose for a timeline, right? We're here in February. We're doing these kind of core team trainings. We need to get out and start knocking doors this month in the district, or in the State House district rather, and ask people, hey, what matters to you, right? Because we all have the reasons why we got involved, but we don't get to vote, or at least I'm not in Freeman's district, so I don't get to vote for them. We need to ask the actual constituents and residents, what do you need that you're not getting from your state house representation today? And then the power mapping, which is why that exercise on the 17th is going to be really great. We need to understand who is supporting Freeman. How do we disrupt that support? So in March, we're doing that mass training. I have March 9th. Maybe we will have to change that to avoid conflict, but that's okay. I'm thinking like 100 people get the same sort of training that Liz and I talked about getting before my city council campaign for 5 people. So scale up 20x, it's doable. We're going to start throwing fundraisers. We're actually already starting, but we're going to deeply gather data at the precinct level to know exactly who we need to target and who are these doors. What is our win number? April, we're going to start getting bigger and bolder. We're going to start doing more relational organizing. We're going to do major canvassing. We're going to get affinity groups. So we're going to get Christians against Freeman. We're going to get church leaders against Freeman. We're going to get car dealers against Freeman. We're going to find different groups of people, and maybe every person gets their button, and then they show that it's a diverse coalition coming out, and it's not just hierarchical from above. And then, June and July, we're just going to be knocking a ton of doors, making a ton of phone calls, and then planning together for how we're going to finish strong to make sure that by November, we're going to just rock it out. So this is intentionally incredibly high level and will be subject to debate, subject to discussion. But I just didn't want to end the call without some concept of the fact that It's just now barely February, and we have a lot of work to do before November.
Yes. Well, it is noon. We did it perfectly
Drop the
on
mic.
time. If you got to jump, jump. I do need to get going, but it sounds like Jesse can stay on for a little longer. I hope to see you all in the future on this campaign and at DSA events. So thank you. Bye, everyone.
Awesome. Seeing nobody staying around for questions now. Remember, just hit reply to my emails. You can always just write back. And if other people ask the same things, I'll put you in connection with each other.
Jesse,
Thank you all. This was amazing.
Jesse, do you have time after the call? Maybe I could catch. I don't know if you were busy after this.
I've got a couple minutes. Let me stop share, stop recording.
Okay.